Hey, I'm Thomas, and this is the AquaMaxx Sigma in-sump media reactor. Probably looks a little bit different than most media reactors that you've seen and has some seriously convenient features that makes running GFO or carbon in your sump a lot easier. But before I get too excited and spill the beans early, let's get cracking. Traditional media reactors are pretty simple. They're a closed container that allows you to fill it with your desired media. It'll have a lid that has a barbed inlet and outlet so that water can be pumped through it, and an external pump to deliver said water. It's simple and it works. But AquaMaxx's Sigma reactors add some very simple and convenient features that make running and maintaining carbon or GFO in your sump a heck of a lot more convenient, with a pump base that allows you to twist the reactor body to control the flow rate, as well as completely lift the reactor off of that base to take it to a sink for cleaning and refilling without having to drag the pump along with it. Plus an ingenious tension fit lid system that ditches all those thumb screws for a dial that takes only a partial turn to release and lift off for dumping and refilling. These reactors are super cool and definitely something special, especially for their price, which is about half the cost of the only other reactor I've seen that has similar features. So let's get them out of the box so I can show you those features close up so you can get an appreciation for what I'm talking about. Instead of me just saying they're super cool. It's easier if you witness them in action. In the box, you'll find the Sigma reactor, the pump, a pair of coarse foam pads, as well as the installation guide. The Sigma is available in two sizes, the Sigma 1 and the Sigma 2. The Sigma 1 is rated to hold up to 1 cup of carbon or 3/4 of a cup of GFO and has a roughly 4" by 4.3" base and sits right around 3.5 inches tall. The Sigma 2, on the other hand, can hold up to either 2 cups of carbon or 1.5 cups of GFO and is only slightly larger with a roughly 5 by 5.5 inch footprint and 14.5 inch height. Both reactors run on reliable CJ pumps that also have their own flow adjustments for extra control, which is fantastic. There's virtually no assembly with these reactors. All you need to do is push the output of the pump into the base of the reactor and place the foam pads inside the reactor when you fill up the media. The reactor itself is already fully assembled right out of the box. Okay, so let's dig into what makes these reactors stand out from the pack, starting with the lid. Like I was saying, most other reactors have a set of thumb screws and keyholes to hold that lid in place, and a few others have threads and you unscrew the body from the lid. But this is the first reactor I've ever had my hands on that uses a really novel tension or pressure fit system to lock that lid in place while simultaneously sealing it. Basically, how it works is there is a large dial at the top of the reactor that you can turn left or right, and when you turn it, it'll lower a tapered plate on the inside of the lid that is holding a large O-ring. As the plate is lowered, the O-ring has less pressure put on it and it shrinks, letting go of the sides of the reactor body. And inversely, when you tighten it, the plate squishes up the O-ring and forces it outwards, which puts more pressure on the sides of the reactor body, which holds that lid firmly in place while also sealing it so that the water has to flow through the slats on the sides of the reactor. This particular lid system is just so simple but so smart, and it completely takes the aggravation of trying to undo a bunch of gummed or locked up thumb screws completely out of the equation. Also, it's faster than trying to unscrew the body of a reactor from a threaded lid. It is, I'm smitten with it. I'm just saying, I really like it. Great idea. I'm on board. The second feature that really sets these reactors apart from most others is the base of the reactor that contains the pump. Not only does it allow you to easily dial in the flow rate by rotating the reactor body with a blue arrow pointing at an intensity indicator, but you can also continue to turn the reactor body until that blue arrow points to open, which allows you to lift the reactor body up and away from the base for refilling and maintenance. Meaning you don't have to unplug a pump and fish a wire through a cabinet and then take that pump to the sink along with the reactor just to do a media change. It can stay there. You can leave it. So for anyone who has ever put off swapping media because they just didn't want to have to deal with the hassle of the pump and the cords, this is an awesome improvement over standard reactors. And you might actually do your media changes when you're supposed to because it's easier. Now, similarly to a lot of other reactors, AquaMaxx gives you a solid acrylic construction, a flow diffuser plate, coarse foam pads to keep your media from going anywhere that it shouldn't, and the ability to take everything apart for cleaning. But being an in-sump reactor, you don't have to deal with tubing, which is excellent, but more importantly, the reactor uses an upflow design with no central tube running through the middle of the reactor, meaning more room for media and less finicky parts that you need to clean with a foxtail brush. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but anytime I use those reactors that have that thin tube down the center, I always manage to get like 1 or 2 granules of carbon or GFO down the center of that skinny tube, and it ends up underneath, and with my luck, it'll be a reactor you can't take the base apart on, and then it just stays there forever and drives me absolutely crazy. So I'm super glad there's no chance of that here. Makes my heart happy. The flow path for these Sigma reactors is pretty straightforward. Water enters at the bottom, flows up through the diffuser plate, travels up through the media, which is sandwiched between those coarse foam pads, and then spills out the slats at the top of the reactor, down the sides of the reactor body, and back into the sump. It's a pretty smart design that keeps the footprint of the reactor nice and compact, but depending on the flow rate and the water height in the sump, may mean you might hear it in a dead quiet room. For reference, here's what it sounds like with a lowish water level and running at max flow while there's nothing inside of the reactor and I'm standing right next to it. So I'm sure you can imagine that once it's in a sump underneath a cabinet with a closed door, you actually have media inside of the reactor and it's running at a flow rating that's appropriate for said media, you're unlikely to ever actually hear it running. Although we've already touched on maintenance with this reactor, I'll go out on a limb and say that keeping the track at the bottom of the base clear of debris and calcareous buildup is going to be pretty important for smooth operation, so you'll definitely want to clean the base along with the pump periodically, just like any pump really, so don't forget about it indefinitely. Every once in a while, drop the base with the pump into a bucket with some RODI and either some citric acid or CJ pump clean, rinse it off, and you should be good to go. If you've been after an easier going, more convenient to use media reactor and don't want to have to dump out your entire wallet to get one, and these AquaMaxx Sigma reactors just so happen to match your reefing mantra, you can pick one up for yourself by clicking right here.